My name is Kennedy Tetour, and this is Groovy Movies, the podcast. This week, Freedom Tomasello joins me to talk about The Last of Us. I give my thoughts on You, and we run through the watch list. Freedom,
No.
introduce yourself.
Hi.
Great introduction. Okay, do you have anything you want to talk about, or do you want me to jump right into it?
Just talk. You talk first.
Okay. So, start us out. Tell me a little bit about The Last of Us. Like, what is it? Who is it?
It's a show based off of a game that was made in 2013. And it's about zombies.
Okay. Yeah, so, like, who's in it?
Like actors?
Yeah, like,
you
who are they and who do they play?
Oh, Pedro Pascal plays Joel Miller.
Mm-hmm.
Bella Ramsey plays Ellie something. I don't know her last name. I forgot it. And then I don't know who else.
Those are the important ones.
Yeah, those are the main characters. I think that's fine.
So yeah, what draws you in? What do you like about it?
The zombies, I guess.
That is not what you like about it.
The story, the plot.
Uh-huh.
I like the plot.
Yeah, what else?
It's a good plot.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
That's it?
And the zombies.
As a fan of the show who has not personally played the game, what's the appeal?
That's a good question. It's very interesting to watch how they connect it to the game, and it makes you want to play the game because you want to know where they got all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how did this become a thing? We don't know. Play the game. Find out.
Okay, so the show, like, it follows the game pretty closely, correct?
Yeah.
Why is that important?
Because it's based off of the game, and a lot of adaptations to games and stuff don't follow closely, and it makes fans really mad. So it's nice to see something that actually does follow the game for once.
Mm-hmm. Based on your personal knowledge of the show, are there any, like, creative liberties that they took with the show that, like, aren't in the games that are interesting?
Yeah, Episode 3 is based off of a character, Bill, who in the game you only saw him for not a very long time, and they didn't really focus on his backstory in the game. He was just kind of there, and in the show, Episode 3 is based entirely on him and what happened to him and all of that. That's cool.
Episode 3 has a lot of controversy, right?
Yeah.
Can you explain that?
So in the show, they made Bill. They kind of opened on the fact that he is a gay man who married a man in the middle of the apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
And in the game, they didn't really do that because in the game, Bill kind of just calls his name is Frank. Yeah, Frank, his partner. But they don't really elaborate on what kind of partner.
Mm-hmm.
But in the show, the entire episode is based on their love story and what happens to them because they're gay in the apocalypse.
Yeah. Is that, like, the only thing that they changed for the show, or have they added other stuff or taken other stuff out?
Well, in the show, a character, Sam, he's deaf because the actor they hired, he was deaf. So in the game, he wasn't deaf, but they changed it so that he was deaf. But it kind of elaborated more on the story, I guess, and it kind of made it more hard-hitting because everything he said was through writing, and everything people said to him was through writing. So you have all of that, like, written down, so it's, like, out in the world forever. It's not just words.
Yeah. I think when we watched that episode, too, which was that, episode 4 or 5?
5, I think.
Yeah, it was kind of hard to watch because, like, especially, spoiler warning, in the end of the episode, Ellie and Sam have this moment where they're like writing back and forth to each other, and they're talking about like how they're scared and how they don't know what's gonna happen. And then Sam kind of opens up a little bit more, and he shows Ellie that he got bit. And that was rough. That was a rough moment.
Well, and then, spoiler warning, Henry, his brother, shoots him and then shoots himself. And at the end of the episode, you see, or is it in the beginning of the next episode?
I think it's both.
Yeah, you see them digging their graves. And at one point, Ellie takes the little notepad that Sam used to communicate with everybody and wrote, "I'm sorry." Because Ellie, her whole thing is she's immune, so she tried to use her blood to cure him because she believed that would work, and it didn't work, so she kind of just apologized and just left it on his grave.
Yeah. That was rough. Anyways, do you want to talk about the most recent episode, which is another kind of like, it's more of a backstory episode than it is like a plot episode, if that makes sense?
Yeah, so it focuses on Ellie when she was still in school for Fedra, and then it kind of, we get introduced to her best friend at the time, Riley, who then they snuck out and they go to like a mall, and you kind of you see Ellie's first kill, like the first infected that she kills, the reason why she kind of is the way she is, I guess. And you see her get bit, and you like experience all of the emotions they felt when they got bit. They don't really elaborate on her not turning and Riley turning, but you kind of just assume at the end.
Yeah. They at the beginning of that episode, they show Ellie in school, right? And there's like I don't know if it's a teacher or a Fedra agent or what, but he kind of like pulls her aside and is like talking to her and trying to like convince her.
So in that episode, a girl, I don't remember her name, takes Ellie's Walkman and like starts messing with her about the fact that Riley ran away or left. And at one point she tells Ellie, she's like, yeah, you don't fight, your friend fights, but your friend is gone. And then Ellie fights her. So she gets sent to, like, I guess what you would call a principal's office. And he kind of tells her, he's like, you gotta get your stuff together or you're gonna be in a bad place. Yeah.
That's kind of interesting to see, though, because I missed that part of the episode. I was not paying attention. So for them to kind of blatantly say that, like, Ellie's not a fighter, like, she kind of just relies on other people to fight for her. And then, like, looking back at how she is in the rest of the show, when it's, like, current day kind of stuff, like, she's so much more willing to fight, and, like, she wants to, like, be the one to, like, fight her own battles, I guess, and also fight battles for other people, because I think I don't remember what episode it was, maybe episode 4? 4 or 5. It was the one with Sam.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, Joel gets into a fight with some guys. They're like passing through, what is it? It's like a
city, I guess.
They're passing through a city, but it like Fedra's not there. Like it got overtaken by the rebellion or something.
The Fireflies.
Sure, that's the rebellion. Anyways, so they're passing through this city, and Joel gets into a fight with a couple of guys, and he tells Ellie to go hide, basically. And it was like, what, 3 against 1?
Yeah.
And the last guy comes up to Joel, kind of takes it by surprise, and then Ellie, like, comes out of nowhere and shoots the guy.
She didn't kill him, though.
She didn't kill him, but she shot him. So I think it's interesting to see how, like, in her past, like, she was more, like, timid, I guess, and, like, wouldn't fight people, and now she's willing to put her own life on the line, and also potentially Joel's life on the line to fight people.
Because she would, like, she always has a knife on her, but I think at one point she took a gun, and she was hiding it from Joel, because he didn't want her to have a gun, but she, like, took the gun, and she really wanted the gun, too, because she wanted to be able to fight people. She also gets really weirdly giddy every time they get into a fight.
Yeah, she gets really excited about it, which is interesting to see that, like...
Well, in the most recent episode, after she stabs the infected and kills the infected, she gets super excited.
Mm-hmm.
And then Riley, it kind of goes downhill from there, but they get really excited.
That's really interesting to see, though. Do you have anything else you want to add about The Last of Us?
They're adding a lot more representation in the show than there was in the game, because I know there's a lot of LGBTQ representation, people of color, because they're, what episode was it? 5, I think? We got introduced to a native couple, and we get to see how they're living.
Mm-hmm.
It was a short period of time, but we saw them. So there's people of color, there's disabilities, like with Sam, and I'm sure there's other ones, but there's a lot more representation in the show than there was in the game, and it's nice to see.
Yeah, that is really cool, especially because at this point, the game came out 10 years ago, so, like, a lot of stuff has changed.
They also changed when I guess you could call it, an apocalypse happened.
Yeah.
Because in the game, it started 2013 when the game came out. But in the show, they moved it back 10 years, so the apocalypse started in 2003.
Yeah, so it kind of lines up, so now, like, where the point that they're at in the show is, like, present day, basically. Which it's still interesting to see, especially because in the show, like, they would have less technology than they would have in the game, because the difference between 2003 and 2013 is kind of huge. So.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No.
Okay, moving on to the next segment. We've got a series spotlight. Have you ever seen You?
No.
Have you ever heard of You?
I've heard of it.
Have you ever watched a trailer?
I think I've watched, like, the first 10 minutes of the first episode. That's the most
so
I got.
You get the basic premise.
Yeah.
So basically, as, like, a recap, You is basically it's a show about this guy named Joe, and he's a stalker, basically. And he finds these women, and he gets, like, super obsessed with them, and then he, like, follows them, and he's not just kind of, like, the kind of stalker that just, like, watches, you know, like, he interacts with them at a certain point, and he'll, like, get super close to them, and in some cases even start, like, dating them, and then he gets so obsessed with, like, protecting these women that he, like, kills them, basically. Because I don't know if it's because he thinks that that's, like, the only way to protect them from the world or what, but it's super messed up. Season 4 Part 1 was released on February 9th, and Part 2 will be released on March 9th. And I've watched the whole show up until this point, and I'm a little bit disappointed by Season 4. It could be worse. It's not bad by any means, but it's also not good. And it just feels really repetitive at this point because seasons 1 through 3 are, like, they're all the same thing where, like, he finds a girl, he's super obsessed with her, stalks her, she dies somehow. And season 3 jumps a little bit more in depth into that concept because he ends up marrying the girl that he was, like, stalking. Turns out she's crazy too. They have a kid together. I think she, like, tries to murder him that time, but I don't know, something goes awry. He catches on and he ends up killing her and then basically framing her for his murder too. So the whole world thinks that he's dead and that his wife is dead and that it was, like, a murder-suicide. His son gets dropped off with, like, one of their friends or something. And then he moves to Europe. I think he goes to France first and then to London to follow another girl. And then he finds, you would never guess it, another girl that he's obsessed with. But season 4 is a little bit different because there's a different killer this time that knows about his past and knows what he's doing. I don't think we know who it is yet, but so this person is, like, killing people and trying to make it seem as if Joe's the one doing it. Because at this point, like, he's changed his name, he's living in a different country, nobody knows who he is. But somebody found out and is, like, trying to uncover that. So, yeah. It's basically I don't know, it gets really repetitive and it's kind of annoying, and I really wish they had just left it at season 3 because I think season 3 would have been a good ending to the show. I honestly think that like if they hadn't kept him alive, if they would have just killed him and actually made it so that it was like a murder suicide type of ending where like everyone dies, I feel like it would have been a better closing to the show. I mean, like obviously we don't know the ending to this season yet, but I think it's just, like, it's kind of annoying. And I don't want to sit through 5 episodes of the same thing every season just to get to, like, the exciting part. I think it's a little obnoxious. And I think that the premise of the first season specifically is really interesting because, like, I don't know, like, it's kind of like, there's, like, a morbid curiosity where, like, you're watching, like, this guy stalk a bunch of women. So, like, it's fun to watch at first, but I feel like watching the same thing happen so many times just gets really uncomfortable, and I personally don't want to watch something uncomfortable if I'm looking for a good show to watch. Another issue with it is that it, like, I don't know if you've seen any clips from it, but it tries to be, like, cool and, like, I don't know, young and hip, and it's not, and it really just comes off as cringy, because a lot of the times, like, it's obvious that they're trying to connect with younger audiences, because Joe will use, like, slang terms, or he'll mention things like TikTok and social media in a way that comes off as, like, millennial humor, and I hate millennials. I absolutely despise millennials. I hope Stengel can hear me right now. I hate millennials. And I understand that, like, the show's trying to connect to, like, teenage audiences and be cooler so that they can get more views, but it's honestly just pushing it in the other direction. I'm so sick of it. I'm so sick of millennial humor. Anyways, moving on. All that to say, it's not a bad show up until season 3. Like, season 4 is annoying. It's still watchable, but it's not good. But seasons 1 through 3 are they're okay. I wish Netflix would kind of, like, fix it. How much time do I have? I got time. I got 15 minutes. So yeah, anyways, shout out to you for being one of the most repetitive shows I've ever watched in my entire life. And shout out to Netflix for canceling all of their good shows and not continuing those, but continuing shows like you that very easily. My stomach is growling. Shout out to Netflix for canceling all their good shows, but not. What? Canceling all their good shows, but continuing shows that are literally just the exact same thing every single season. I swear they kind of just, like. Watching you is like reading a paper that, like, 5 different kids plagiarized off each other. Because it's, like, season 1 to season 2, it's like, okay, like, they changed a little bit. It's not exactly the same. And then season 2 to 3, it's like, okay. You know, it's in slightly different words, but it's still pretty much the same. And then season 4 is exactly the same, where it's, like, it's a little different, I guess. But it's basically exactly the same as season 1 so far. So, I'm annoyed. Somebody fight me on this, because it's obnoxious. Anyways, watch list. It's time for the watch list. It's this month's, I don't know how often I'm going to do this podcast, but this watch list is it's a lot of older stuff because February is, like, notorious for being the worst month of the year for film. And today is the last day of February. So, to balance it out, it's, like, older picks that deserve more attention. First off, being The Menu. Have you seen it?
No.
Freedom's being a great guest today, guys.
I've seen parts of it.
I wrote a review on it. Did you read my review?
No.
Ouch. So I did already write a review on it, but after watching it, it's kind of become, like, one of my favorite movies recently. It's an artistic thriller that follows a character named Margot, played by Anya Taylor-Joy, through her trials and tribulations at one of the world's most famous restaurants. It's a really creative and really weird movie, and I highly recommend it to fans of either thriller movies or, like, really subtle horror movies, because for, like, I would say, like, a solid hour of the movie, like, nothing really scary happens. It's all just very unsettling and weird. It's definitely odd, but it's really good. The second one I know Freedom has seen. It's called Over the Moon. We watched it together.
We did?
Yeah, it's the one with the little girl and the bunny.
Oh, when they go to the moon.
Yeah. So it's basically the general concept of it is it's an animated film about a young girl struggling with the loss of her mother, in addition to, like, it's a couple years after her mom passed away, and her dad, I don't know, gets with this other woman, and she's very upset about it.
New girl.
Yeah, she's very upset about the idea of having a stepmom, and this woman has a son who's, I think, a couple years younger than the girl, and she really hates him. She thinks he's annoying, and she's very upset about it, and she basically throws a temper tantrum and runs away to the moon. So yeah, what are your thoughts on it?
I think it was cute. I liked it was cute. It was just a cute movie. Like, I would show it if I had kids. I would show it to my kids.
Yeah, it's very adorable. There's a lot of, like, good use of color in it, in addition to just, like, being a very, like, sweet and heartwarming story. The characters are all pretty lovable, I would say. So yeah, watch Over the Moon. It's very cute. Last one, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. Have you seen it?
No.
Have you seen any version of Pinocchio?
No.
Okay, so there's been like 4 different versions of Pinocchio that have come out in the last year, which I think is kind of annoying, and I'm really sick of Hollywood just making 100 of the same movie at the same time. But this one was actually pretty good. It's a dark twist on the original Pinocchio, because it covers a lot of stuff that Disney didn't cover in either of their versions. Because Geppetto, the old guy, it shows that he had a son, but his son died in some, like, horrible accident. I think it takes place during World War II. Either World War I or World War II, but either way, they're in Italy. Geppetto's son gets blown up, and he's very upset about it. He goes into this, like, weird rage, and creates a wooden puppet boy, which is Pinocchio. And it's kind of like to fill a void in his heart. And at first, like, the whole town thinks he's crazy, and they're like, you're seeing things, like, this puppet can't actually move. You just, like, you lost your son, and now you're going crazy. But eventually, you know, like, he goes to school and everything, just like in the Disney version. And the whole town's like, oh, he's real. So yeah, he gets into trouble across the town. In this version, there are a lot of, like, weird mythical creatures, which I know there's a couple in the Disney version, but there's a lot more in this movie. And I think it's really cool to see just, like, a darker twist on a movie a movie that was already dark. They get eaten by a whale at the end. Like, Pinocchio's not a happy story, but, like, watching something that kind of takes the darker parts of it and spins it into something a little bit more creative, I would say, and is more of, like, a dark creative twist on a story that's been told 100 times in the last year is pretty cool. And it's stop motion, and I really like stop motion. And I watched a couple videos on, like, how they made it, and it's really cool to see how they sculpt each of the different, like, figures and how they use them. So yeah, any thoughts on Pinocchio?
No. I haven't seen it, so I can't.
Well, you know, I'm trying, man. Anyways, that's all. That is Groovy Movies, the podcast, episode 1. Any final thoughts from you?
No.
Okay, I guess it's time to wrap it up then. Yeah, thanks for listening. I'll make another episode at some point, probably next week, honestly, because this is really fun and I like talking about movies. So, yay!
Yeah.